We have to? No, I'm just
kidding. Now, you had sent me something, and it says that the Bears are looking for could possibly be looking for a new head coach, and that reports are out that Ryan Pace is reportedly going to stay. So,
yes, there's a few sources. One of whom he's broken a lot of significant news on Twitter, and I'd be shocked if he was wrong. So yeah, all reports seem to be that Ryan Pace is not taking much blame for this, that the blame is going to Matt Nagy, which I find a little bit strange. And yeah, and ultimately that Ryan Pace is keeping his job. And the other rumors that are coming out is that, so I think what's happening is with this situation is I think that they realize that they need to go in a new direction. Even though Matt Nagy has had some success, they need to go in a new direction. So I think they want to get Dan Quinn or Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh, I think, is the first choice. But they have to pry him away from his very lucrative Michigan job where he makes a lot of money and he's successful and pretty successful at least. And they have to pry him away from that job. He has reportedly shown interest from another source that I think it was the same source actually, that Jim Harbaugh has reportedly shown interest. And in that ultimately, obviously he's played for the Bears. Jim Harbaugh's played for the Bears. He knows Justin Fields. He was in the same conference as Justin Fields against when Michigan and Ohio State saw him multiple times. The other report was that Jim Harbaugh is eyeing the Raiders job. So that's a whole, that's a fluid situation. We're going to have to look into that in the future because that's very interesting. It's like, well, which one does he prefer if he could have both? Would he want to come back to Chicago or would he want to go to the Raiders? I don't know. So we definitely need to see that for sure.
He might actually choose Chicago. And you want to know why?
Why is that?
They have youth. They
do have youth.
Youth and potential at the quarterback position. You know what I mean? The potential for Justin Fields to be really good is with the right guidance and the right coaching is there. The potential for him to be very good is there. He knows what he's getting with Derek Carr. He's getting a veteran, and do you, no offense, but do you want to deal with with Davis?
That's true. That's a good point.
If I was, it seems like the upper management of Chicago would be more willing to kind of let Harbaugh do his thing and leave, and stay out of it than the Raiders management would. That's the one thing that might deter him. And if I'm him, I want to go to a team where they just let me do my thing. Let me do what I do and don't bug me.
That's a really good point.
And don't bug me. And I think Bears upper management, Ryan Pace and McCaskey, I think they would just let him do what he does without bothering him. And that's what any coach wants. Let me coach and just let me coach the team.
No, dude, I'm 100% with you. And I would love that. God, that would be the best case scenario. I think that Ryan Pace would love to hire a really, really good coach and just kind of be there for the scouting. I really think he'd love that. And honestly, he'd probably defer to the coach most of the time, especially if it's a guy like Jim Harbaugh, who's a complete alpha personality. I could totally see that. Ryan Pace does not come off to me. He comes off as an analytical guy. He does not come off as like this alpha who wants to call the shots.
And you know what Jim Harbaugh would do for Pace too? He would say to Ryan Pace, analytics are great and we'll use them, but they're not the Bible.
Yeah, and Jim Harbaugh will have to have, especially when he's also...
And Harbaugh would command respect on that too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Pace would say, okay, I think Pace would back down.
He probably
would have the type of personality where Ryan Pace would back down and say, okay, we'll trust you on it.
And maybe he should. Maybe Ryan Pace actually is the guy who should be the guy who, because it was Mike or Ted Phillips before. Maybe Ryan Pace should be that guy. he hasn't. The problem with Ryan Pace is I think he'd be better in a presidential role or a front office consultant role or a scouting role, because we need a GM that understands the cap situation, like the Rams. You know what I mean? Where you can just continuously sign people if you need to and fill spots that you need to, and understand where your cap is. That's really important. So I don't think he excels at that, but I do think he has an eye for talent. And call me crazy, I do. But I would absolutely love. He said Bears football is on par with. Yeah, it's like we have high expectations. Exactly, we have absolutely high expectations, and I think that a guy like Jim Harbaugh has incredibly high expectations. And another thing about Jim Harbaugh is he's been recruiting for the last, 7 years, 8 years. He's been recruiting and recruiting. Also, he likes, because remember he had Colin Kaepernick, and he wasn't satisfied with Alex Smith. And Alex Smith was really, really good. That was like his prime. He wasn't satisfied with Smith. He got Colin Kaepernick. Obviously, we know what happened there, but that's a whole different thing. But when they were successful, he had a running dual threat quarterback who could throw down the field. And that's exactly what Justin Fields is. Derek Carr is not that. He's a pocket quarterback. He's a really good pocket quarterback, but he's a pocket quarterback. So I don't know if he'd be satisfied with Derek Carr. So I think Harbaugh is a really good idea.
He's coached a guy like you said, with Colin Kaepernick's skill set. And I think that, a guy like Fields who can throw on the move well, and Fields throws in the pocket okay, you know what I mean? But his Justin Fields' real skill set is on the bootleg, looking down the field, finding an open receiver and delivering a ball on the move. I think that's his strongest skill set. And how did the Niners, when the Niners were really successful with Kaepernick, is what did they do with him? They got him on the move. They got that line. It was usually a stretch block, and it was.
Yeah. We need that.
Let's move the line. Let's move the quarterback, and let's let the receivers, do what they do and throw on the run. And I think,
wow.
Like I'm telling you, I think Harbaugh would fit very well. If I was him, I would choose a team like Chicago over. There's multiple, there's multiple layers to it. You got to consider Chicago has the youth on defense. They have youth on defense, which is huge for Harbaugh because he's going to like that, the youth on the D that he can build on. And they should just get him in there and let him draft offensive linemen to put around Justin Fields. I'm telling you, I think it would be wise of him to consider Chicago as a destination.
It would be absolutely wise of. I think he is. You know what? I'm hoping he's the first option, because now that you say that, that is Matt Nagy's. What you just explained, that whole rolling out the blocking scheme and everything. That's Matt Nagy's greatest weakness. Matt Nagy's clever from sideline to sideline. Sometimes he's clever with the receivers. Sometimes he's even clever with the run game. But he is terrible with the blocking game. The blocking game makes no sense sometimes. Like he'll just kind of like run up the gut or do a pitch around. It's like there is no sophisticated blocking scheme. Just like Harbaugh, just like Kyle Shanahan, just like Sean McVay. That kind of stuff is so important in today's game. And Matt Nagy, that is one thing that I can say on the field he lacks tremendously. So I would love to see Harbaugh try that with the Bears, especially with a guy like Montgomery and Herbert. Man, you could really get something out of that.
But see, and here's the thing too: if you can get that passing game rolling with Fields, that's going to open things up for Montgomery to just have absolute beasts of a game.
I'd love to see it.
If you have to respect Fields on the ground, then you're going to leave that middle of the field a little soft, because out of respect for him. And I think Harbaugh would fit well. I really do. I think he would fit well there. I think the youth is there. And the most important thing for me, like I said before, is they're going to let him do what he does. You don't want, if you're a coach in this, look at the good teams. What do they all have in common? Look at the good owners in the NFL. good owners and good GMs are the money guys.
Yep.
Especially the owners. The owner is the money guy. He signs the checks and just stays out of the football business.
The good ones do.
That's what I'm saying. The good owners in the league of these teams that are perennial playoff teams, they are simply there to monitor the money, and that's it.
That's definitely something that the Bears need. I don't think that's Pace's strength, and I think that he really messed up. And yeah, that's what we need. So I saw this one. There was a poll on this Bears group I'm in, and they all did the whole thing. Kellen Moore was on there, so it was Jim Harbaugh, Kellen Moore, Dan Quinn. Who do you want and stuff like that, and there was like 65% Jim Harbaugh. People really want to see Jim Harbaugh try. And I've said that. I said that in a previous video. I think it was like 2 months ago that I wouldn't mind seeing Jim Harbaugh come. And that would be cool. That'd be really cool to see. Because I think we do need a change of direction.
Well, I mean, let's like go just 2 more minutes here.
Sure.
So if Harbaugh does come into the league, Chicago's one of the teams, and give me like 2 or 3 others that you think that he could go to. I think Chicago fits the best out of any team that you could actually like.
Well, they said he's shown interest in the Raiders, but again, that could just be a leverage point. You know what I mean? They could just be like.
That's never been his style. I think that might be a little smoke and mirrors going on there.
Well, I'm not. Who else would? He's not going to Jacksonville. He's much too successful to go to Jacksonville,
and that's a mess. Why would you?
Yeah.
At least Chicago has building blocks and a solid core to work with. Jacksonville, you're going to have to start from scratch.
I agree, Rick. Yeah, he said Bears need Tony Dungy. I mean, Tony Dungy has spoken out a lot on this situation, actually, believe it or not. Tony Dungy has said, hey, what's up, TSR? Tony Dungy has spoken a lot
what's up, Rich?
On this Bears situation. He speaks a lot on everything. He talks on Sunday Night America, but he mentioned like that Jim Caldwell. That's another guy. Jim Caldwell was on the list too. I would honestly be okay with all 4 of them over Nagy right now. I would. And it's not because I really think I'm not one of these people who like wants to burn Nagy at the stake, because there's a lot of those people. Nagy's the reason we suck, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of reasons why we suck. Nagy's not the only reason, but I think Matt Nagy needs to be a good offensive coordinator for a while before he can be a head coach again.
You know what I think happened? You guys have just run your course with Matt Nagy.
Sadly, I think that's true.
I think the Bears have just run their course. I think that this is what they're going to be with him at the helm. I think it's just gotten to that point. They've run their course with him. I think the team needs a new voice in the locker room.
I agree, and I think we need. You know what we need? We need because who called it? Eddie Jackson called him a player coach. Matt Nagy, he called him a player coach. I don't want a player coach. Okay. I don't want one. I don't want one. It's never worked in Chicago. Keep in mind, Buddy Ryan was a player coach. He was the defensive coordinator. It's the only time it's ever worked. It's never worked in Chicago. Lovie Smith was not a player coach. His players loved him, but he was incredibly disciplined. He was incredibly hard on his team. And also, they were the most buttoned up team on defense and special teams. They never had penalties on defense and special teams. On offense, they were trash, but that's a whole different thing. So that's just never worked in Chicago. It's not our culture. We talked about culture before. Culture matters. Yeah. And I think that Jim Harbaugh fits the culture a lot. Defensive-minded, run game first. And then if you give him a guy like Justin Fields, he can make you pay.
Harbaugh would use David Montgomery to his fullest potential.
Yes, he would. He'd use all of Harbaugh is going to extract all of the potential out of all of his players. That's what he did all 3 years he was in the league. He went to the title game.
I didn't mean to. Sorry, man. I didn't mean to.
Oh, you're fine. I was just finishing.
I think that's the biggest part of what kind of. I think Nagy's voice in the locker room has just kind of been lost. You know, like they still respect him, but I think it's just I think he's like I think you guys have just run your course with him, and that's a new voice. I think would be good. I think it
Yeah.
would do the team and the team morale